It's the black guy in the corner, but they'd rather see a on the corner. They say I'm stealing Nick's clips like I'm stealing Nick's chick, not knowing that I hit him first week for the lick. I said, Nick, I could post here while you post there. Let's run the ads up, then let's meet up over there.
Good evening, everybody. You're watching America First. My name is Nicholas J. Fuentes. We have a great show for you tonight. Very excited to be back here with you tonight on Thursday. We have a lot to talk about tonight, lots to get into. Big show. Our featured story, we're going to be talking all about the acquisition of Greenland by the United States. And this is something that has been discussed, as you know, since Trump's first term. So it's been years. And ever since Trump took office for his second term, it has been a preoccupation of this administration. They want to acquire Greenland. And there's been a lot of talk in the past couple of weeks in particular about maybe even potentially invading Greenland. Now, there is an offer being prepared by Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, to buy Greenland for $700 billion from Denmark. And there has been much discussion about it, and people are saying, is it even really necessary to own Greenland? Do we need to have it? Or is it good enough to just be able to put our troops there, have a U.S. presence there? And I think, why not? We should have it. We have to have it. We need it. Let's plant our flag there. I like the idea of America getting bigger, larger. I don't know about you, but I like seeing more of the map become America. I like seeing more territory have the American flag flying over it. Venezuela, Panama, Colombia, Cuba, Greenland. Why not? Canada, Mexico. I like it. So I love the idea. We're going to talk all about it tonight, and I'll tell you why. And it's not a meme. It's not just a meme. It is actually a really good idea. And we'll talk about the geopolitical significance of it. I'm not sure how much the average person knows about it. I feel like this discussion has been going on for so long. People know the general arguments, and it has to do with mining. There are a lot of critical minerals in Greenland. You have uranium, which is a big one, but you also have some other deposits of minerals that we need. The rare earth minerals, which is actually sort of a misnomer. They're quite common. It has to do with how much of them you get relative to the quantity of soil that you have to mine. So there's been discussion about the rare earths, about the uranium, and I think people generally know at this point the geostrategic significance of Greenland as the Arctic ice sheet begins to melt. Trade routes are going to open up, so there will be a lot of commerce there. And with commerce comes a strategic interest. If a commercial vessel can go through, then a naval vessel can go through and will. And its proximity to the United States. This is very close to home, just like Cuba, just like Venezuela. All those same arguments from the Monroe Doctrine apply here. So we'll talk about some of those, but beyond all that, I think it's just a good investment. More land, if we could swing it, why not? I love it. I really like it. So, and I can't wait to hear how I'm an Israel shill for saying that, right? We invade this island, we invade this ice shelf with 50,000 Eskimos, and you're going to get all these dipshits saying, this is a war for Israel. Like, we could literally invade Greenland. It's practically uninhabited. It's ice. It's mostly ice. There's like 50,000 Eskimos in igloos, and you're going to get Ian Carroll and Max Blumenthal saying, oh, great, another war for Israel. Oh, great, another neocon war for the Jews. It's like, why don't we just take it? Okay, let's just take stuff that we can. Take whatever you can. That's the law of the world now. Russia takes Ukraine. Israel takes this and that. No one's stopping them. You wish they would, but no one is. So I think it's time for us to join the party. Let's take some stuff for ourselves. Yeah, let's take Venezuela. Let's take Greenland. Plant the flag. I see a lot of people saying, you want to annex Venezuela and Mexico? So let me get this straight. You want to deport all these Hispanics and then take their countries? I didn't say we're going to let them vote. Who said anything about that? Because I've legitimately seen that. I'm going full imperialist on the show. I'm saying, take the oil, take Venezuela, take Mexico. And I see all these heritage Americans. They're like, oh boy. So Nick wants to deport all these Venezuelans and then take their country. It's like, bro, we don't got to let them vote. I didn't say we got to make them the 51st state. They're a colony. What about colonialism? Don't you understand? We're not going to give them the right to vote. We're just going to take their stuff. People say, oh boy, we're going to plant our flag and then what? They're going to come and live over here? No, we'll have internal borders. They're not going to be a state. They're going to be subjects. Hello? What part of Roman Empire don't you understand? Colonies, not states. Different. Anyway, I'm joking a little bit there, but it's also kind of true. It speaks to the mindset. People are they are the raped. You know, you're like a white guy in the 21st century fantasizing about the Roman Empire, fantasizing about a return to greatness for America, for the West. You start to talk about America taking overseas colonies, and the spiritually and physically raped say, but what about when they vote? Vote. We're not even going to be voting here. What are you talking about? They say. But that's where we are. Even the based chuds. You talk about overseas expansion, they say, oh, but what about when those other people vote? It's like, I don't even want us voting here. You think they're going to be voting there? You've got it all twisted. You have a lack of imagination. You know, where we're going, we don't need votes, okay? Votes, where we're going, we don't need voting. It's not going to be like that. You know, what part of 1,000-year Trumpenreich don't you understand? What part of vote one more time and then never again? There's not going to be elections. No, but we're obviously joking. So we'll talk all about Greenland. We're going to talk about Trump's potential invocation of the Insurrection Act in Minneapolis. I wish he would. He keeps talking about it. Amid the unrest and riots in Minneapolis in response to the ICE deployment. By the way, nobody has been arrested. Do you know that? There have been all these riots happening in Minneapolis. Last night, you have an ICE agent, I think actually it happened this afternoon. He shot a Venezuelan illegal because he was trying to arrest this guy, and a bunch of agitators came out and hit him with shovels. And so ICE barged in, arrested everybody. But in Minneapolis, there's straight up riots going on. They're shooting fireworks at cops, taking over hotels. It's mayhem. And you see the videos by Nick Sorter and these other guys. It's all over Twitter. Do you know that Minneapolis police arrested 0 people last night? So when you see these videos of fireworks blowing up and cops getting beat and the absolute anarchy that's unfolding, nobody's even getting arrested. So Trump says, I'll invoke the Insurrection Act. Bro, do it. Do something. Just stop chickening out. I'm just tired of the idle threats. We're going to bomb you. We're going to tariff you. We're going to invoke the Insurrection Act. Always chickens out. Just do it. You're the commander-in-chief. He does it every time. He did it during the BLM riots. He did it during the LA riots. Please pull the trigger. Please kill them, Mr. President. Please just kill them. No, not actually. I'm not actually wishing for violence, but Please send in the military and restore order. This is your country. You are the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. You are the chief executive over this country, and it is lawless. Take some responsibility. Take the reins. Send in the military. If this Jewish communist running the city won't arrest these people, if this gay governor, Tim Walz, doesn't do it, send in the military. That's why you were elected. I don't get it. This happened the last time in Minneapolis, BLM, Summer of Love. Trump kept threatening, I'll send him in. I swear I'll do it. I'll invoke the Insurrection Act. Do it. Throw these people in jail. They are trash. Seriously. It's bad enough that they're rioters, which by itself, we should have zero tolerance for. It's one thing if you want to protest. I'm a huge believer in the First Amendment. You have a right to speak. You have a right to assemble. You have a right to the press. All of that. You have civil liberties. But going out after midnight and establishing an autonomous zone and forming barricades in the streets and breaching private businesses or police headquarters, stealing weapons from the police, yeah, that's not First Amendment protected. There should be zero tolerance for that. That's bad enough. But then they're doing it in defense of criminal scammers and illegals. So then it's treason. You got to drop the hammer. Why do we have a President Trump if this stuff is going on in any American city? Drop the hammer. Please, kill these people. Throw them in jail. Don't actually kill them. But throw them in jail. Like, you have to go in and shut it down. I'm not actually calling for violence. But Trump needs to send in the military and shut it down. We voted for no more chaos, no more riots. We don't want this. Shut it down. So we'll talk about that too. Should be a pretty good show. Before we get into it, I want to remind you to smash the follow button on Rumble, smash the like button, leave a comment. Let me know what you think about the show. Remember to check out the merch store, Fuentes.store, to get shirts, hats, all that stuff. Subscribe on my website, AmericaFirst.plus. Get access to every episode of the show, everything I've ever done, plus MP3 format, AmericaFirst.plus. I'm feeling a lot better today. I've been sick all week. Somehow I got sick again. I couldn't even believe it. I thought it's because I worked out too hard. 2026, we're all ascending. We're all looks-maxing. I started working out. And then on Monday, I was in so much pain. And I thought, what is going on? Like, am I that much of a wimp? And then I got this horrible chill. I couldn't shake this chill. I'm like, is it just really cold in here? I took my temperature. I had 101-degree fever. I'm like, what the I was just sick. A week before Christmas, I got sick all over again. But the fever finally broke. I feel much better today. So I'm energized. I did Alex Jones this afternoon, a couple hours with the big man, with the GOAT. Love Alex. Love doing a little InfoWars appearance. He is the man. And we talked about all of it. He's so funny. We have a great chemistry now, you know. So I really, every time we do a show, it just gets better and better. So I really enjoyed it. I uploaded the replay of that on my Rumble channel. So if you missed it, you could check it out on the channel. I think it just went up a few hours ago. So check that out. We might have some big collaborations this weekend and next week. I'm already back in business. We're hitting the ground running in 26. Full week of shows, InfoWars. Might be doing some big collaborations this weekend. Going into next week, more the following weekend. It's going to be a lot of content, so buckle up. One other thing, before we get into the news, I just have to address this. Oh my goodness. Will this woman leave me alone? Seriously. She just keeps coming back and coming back. She's like every other one of my jilted, seething, girlfriends. She keeps coming back for more. She can't get enough. I don't know if she loves to hate me or maybe she hates how much she loves me. But today I wake up, my fever has broken, I have my breakfast, fried chicken and pizza, and I'm watching YouTube, doing my morning routine, get ready with me. And then I am subject to an all-out attack from Candace Owens on Twitter, essay after essay. And this is really a load of crap because, you know, I'm limited on X. They won't let me buy a check mark. So I only get 280 characters. I don't get the extended character limit because I can't buy a check mark. So I just get this full frontal attack from Candace Owens. She writes this giant essay, then another one, then another one. And I'm still shaking the cobwebs out. And she's attacking me over some nonsense. Then she does a whole show about me. She's playing clips from my show, the greatest hits. She's playing with her hair. She's batting her eyes. She's touching her face. I'm like, wow. Somebody woke up on the wrong side of my bed today, going out after me. And I'm not going to address most of what she said because most of it is really just, it's all shit we've heard before. It's all debunked nonsense. When people have a problem with me, they just go to the playbook. They just hit me on everything. Fed, gay, this. You were at the Capitol. You said this, you said that. All the shit we've heard before. But you know what's funny about Candace? This is the latest diversion. People seem to have forgotten. What happened to those Egyptian planes? I really just have one question. I'm not even going to rebut. I'm not going to refute anything she said. Whatever. Eat your heart out. I have one question for Candace Owens, and this is the only thing I care about. One question. What the hell happened to those Egyptian planes? Because we heard about the Egyptian planes every day and every night for like a month. I think she did 25 shows, 25, standing on the grave of Charlie Kirk, making up this nonsense about Egyptian planes. She said that these Egyptian military planes are following Charlie Kirk. She put together a table of everywhere that Charlie Kirk was, and every time he traveled, an Egyptian plane intersected with his plane. She put together this spreadsheet that Charlie and Erica Kirk were being tailed by these Egyptian planes. Well, maybe you didn't hear, but it was uncovered before Christmas that all of that data is completely fake. It's literally all fake. She got 66% of all the data wrong, just straight up wrong. There was a YouTuber that did the actual research. He paid thousands of dollars to get the data from the relevant sources. He put it together on his own spreadsheet, and he found that not only was most of the data wrong, but that it was extremely wrong. That in many of the cases, not only were the Egyptian planes not in the same place as Erica Kirk, they were in another continent. So it's not like the plane was 2 hours away or in the same state where you could chalk it up to an oversight. No, they were in another continent. They were on another part of the planet. This was revealed in the second week of December. It was all fake. She came out to address this on December 16th, 2025. This is 30 days ago. On December 16th, 2025, she uploaded a video and she said, I'm aware there's some problems with my data. She said, and people misunderstood it. She didn't get it wrong. People misunderstood. She said, and there was a little sleight of hand there too. She said, the Egyptian planes are following turning point faith events that sometimes Erica and Charlie were at. So now it's turning point faith. Now it's not Charlie, it's not Erica, it's them plus the organization. And she made a commitment. She said, I've been working on an incredible document. an interactive map. She said, I'm uploading it to my website this week. And it is going to show you everything about the Egyptian plains because this is a God thing. And this was placed in my lap. And we don't know, but we know that this is the center of it. This is going to blow the lid on everything. It's been 30 days. 30 days. 30 days. No interactive map. No timeline. Where's my timeline? No timeline. No incredible document on a website. Nothing. Actually, I don't even think it's been mentioned since. So she did a whole show about me. And look, I am a fan. I'm a standis. I'm a standis of Candace Owens. And I, like all the other schizos, I'm waiting for my incredible document. Where's my interactive map? Where's my timeline? Don't tell me Nick Fuentes is a Fed for the 6 millionth time. Don't tell me Nick Fuentes was at January 6th. Yeah, it was awesome. I gave an awesome speech. I rallied the troops. We failed to take over the government, but we tried anyway. That's a joke. FBI, that's a joke. President Newsom. Yeah, okay, we've heard that before. It's been 30 days. I want my interactive map. But I think that this is the beginning of the end for Candace Owens. Credibility shot. Credibility is imploding. None of this stuff is adding up. The Egyptian plane is a stinker. It's totally fake, totally bullshit. The Fort Huacachuca thing totally fell apart. Your witness is unreliable. He's a complete freak and an idiot. Now we've resorted to yesterday. I don't even know what we're doing. Now she's talking about time travelers. I actually went back and watched her show from yesterday. She said that when Charlie Kirk was a student in high school, he would jog down the street and street lights would flicker as he passed by because he had some kind of telekinetic ability. He had some kind of energetic ability. And I wish I was making that up. That's real. I couldn't even believe it. Somebody sent it to me and I went through and I watched the show. Now the theory, forget the Egyptian planes. We're just going to blow past that because I guess that's fake. Forget Mitch and Fort Huacachuca. That's fake. Now she's saying that Charlie Kirk was groomed since he was a little boy by lizard agents of the Matrix because they determined he was a psychic. She said, he texted me that he was a time traveler. Why would he say that if he wasn't telling the literal truth? She said he used to tell me that when he jogged down the street, street lights would turn on and off. Okay, so what are you saying there? What's the implication? That Charlie Kirk is some kind of Tesla coil? That Charlie Kirk as an entity he's some kind of disturbance in the space-time continuum? What exactly are you saying now? The electric field is distorted when Charlie walks by? They knew that? Some kind of trans-dimensional force knew it? And now it's on to me. Now I'm part of it. Yes. Brigitte Macron, Netanyahu, the Stanford prison experiment, the French Revolution, Sigmund Freud, and yes, and I'm part of it too. And so is Alex Jones, and it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And look, this one you can't blame on me. Okay? Stop with the diversion, cut the shit, give us the map. Okay? This is like national treasure. Give us the map. The timetable, the interactive map. Where is it? Where's the map, Candace? You know what else is really funny, though? This one really gave me a laugh. She is so mad that I said black people have low IQ. Because she said it like 5 times on the show. She kept going back and hitting it in reverse and going back over it over and over. She said, maybe Nick can learn something from me because I have a sub-Saharan IQ. Like, she's so mad. And it's like, look, bro, I mean, you are an idiot. And that kind of goes with the territory. I'm not saying there's no smart black people, okay? I'm saying that on average, black people have a lower IQ. That is just true, okay? Sigmund Freud didn't make that up, okay? The Sumerians didn't make that up. That was not, they didn't edit the history books. That's just true. And anyone would know that by spending any amount of time in like a black neighborhood, okay? Or spending any amount of time on social media. It's just one of those things. So I said that on her show. I don't think she ever recovered. I said on her show, I'm like, look, race is real. Whites and blacks are different. They're equal, but they're different. And the reason that blacks cannot create successful societies is because on average, they have a much lower IQ. And IQ is the predictor for everything. I mean, you can actually map what kinds of jobs you can do onto your IQ quintile. So for example, people that are like 90 IQ, they can do menial tasks, repetitive tasks. With some training, they can do repetitive tasks, things that you do over and over with your hands. At 115 to 120 IQ, you can do tasks that require reasoning and critical thinking. And so this is why a society of people with an average IQ of 100 can industrialize and create a complex, large civilization with bureaucracy and institutions and this sort of thing. And that's why a society of people where the average is 85 cannot develop a middle class, cannot do these things. And she got really hung up. She was like, well, what about Egypt? We was kings. I was like, Egypt isn't in sub-Saharan Africa, bro. So she came back on that. She's like, my sub-Saharan IQ, bro, chill. She's very insecure about her intelligence, like a lot of black people and like a lot of women. She's very self-conscious about her low IQ. And look, it's okay. Fortunately for her, she race mixed with a white person, so her children have a chance at being higher IQ. That's the good news. So you don't need to beat yourself up about it that you're a dummy. It's okay. I mean, you're good in other ways, you know? Good entertainer, good speaker, and all that. IQ, not her strong suit. But yeah, I almost felt bad. I actually felt bad because it clearly hurt her feelings very deeply. Sore subject. I understand that. So anyway, so that's my response to her. I mean, she wanted to throw all the, you said this, you said that. It's just like a load of crap. We're not talking about all the ADL spreadsheet, the hit piece that's been created about me. Let's talk about what matters. Let's talk about what you talk about on your show, which is Egyptian planes. We're not getting into a diversion. We're not getting into some other realm where you're going to throw it all back on me. Well, you can throw it all back on me, but like in that way, let's get back to what actually matters. You said for months that Egyptian planes were following Charlie Kirk. You said you were going to release an interactive map, and then you just never followed up. Why? Where is it? Where's the accountability? Either admit you were wrong or shut the fuck up and log off forever. Seriously. Because that is like the bar is on the floor in terms of journalistic integrity. You gassed everybody up. You got everybody whipped up into this paranoid schizophrenia. People are talking about maroon shirts and beekeepers and secret transgenders and trap doors and energy weapons. And this thing about Egyptian planes, you fucked up. Admit it. You got all the information wrong because you're a fucking idiot. You can't read a table because you're a low IQ idiot, and you messed it up. You staked your career on this. You hung your hat on that. That was the foundation. It became the foundation of the whole conspiracy. You fucked up. You didn't do your due diligence. You didn't run it by your white producers, who are men. You didn't run it by the Supreme Court, your husband. You messed up. You made yourself look like an ass. You destroyed your credibility. If you want to build your credibility back, fess up and admit your mistake. But you're not going to get away with it No one's going to forget. Nobody is going to move on. You're not going to create a big diversion and pivot to attacking me or on to the next thing. 22 episodes talking about Egyptian planes. You said you knew. You said that's the proof. Tucker, your buddy, who's best friends with Kevin Spacey, said, I happen to know that for a fact. That's weird because it's all fake. So what do you mean? You know, that's like Tucker Carlson's favorite thing. He loves to say that. I can't tell you how I know, but I know that's really because the emperor has no clothes. You have been caught with your hand in the cookie jar. That's all bullshit. Somebody paid $950 for the data and reassembled the table for you, and it's all fake. So where's our interactive map? I can't wait to see it, but something tells me we're 30 days out, we're never going to see it. She launched this huge attack on me today, and I replied, she said, I want to debate you on whether the world is run by satanic pedophiles like Brigitte Macron and Sigmund Freud and this, that, and Aleister Crowley. I said, I'm really more interested in the thing you've been talking about for the past 3 months, which is Egyptian planes. She didn't answer that on her show today. Would have been so easy. She just pretended like it was never even mentioned. So we need to start a daily count. 30 days overdue on the interactive map. Next update tomorrow. We're 30 days out from the interactive map. When are we going to get it? How many days? 100 days? 500 days? When are we going to get our map about the Egyptian planes? Because, you know, until we get that, this is a completely unserious person who misled the entire country. She embellished and fabricated claims to blow up her show. She was searching for something, anything, to keep the soap opera going, and she didn't do her journalistic due diligence. And now she wants to pretend like that never happened. Well, we're not going to let her pretend that that never happened. It happened. Egyptian planes, you live by it, you die by it. Your credibility lives and dies by that. Where are they at? Where's the map? Where's the timetable? You're not going to throw that on me. We want to see the map. So anyway, so that's my response to that whole thing. And if you have this brilliant sub-Saharan IQ that you're so proud of, well, then let's see it. You know, put it together for us. But that's that. We are going to move on. We're not going to spend too much time on that. Like I said to Alex Jones, the problem with crazy is that if you spend too much time thinking about them or talking about them, you become crazy too. That is because women are irrational. They don't use arguments. They don't talk about stuff. They play on your emotions. They talk about relationships. They get into stuff like that. And you're never going to win an argument when you get into it with a psycho gaslighting woman. Anybody knows that. You know, it's that old axiom about, you know, arguing with your wife. If she's right, she's right. If she's wrong, she's right. Happy wife, happy life. You just cannot engage on that level. So we can't get too much into that. But you know, she's in the man's world. All right, you want to play dress up. You want to LARP as an influencer. I'm putting on my pantsuit. I'm a little political influencer. Okay, little girl. Okay, little Miss Girl Boss, where's our map? No, you can't, you know, throw a glass of wine on me. No, this is not a soap opera. You need to do your job and show us your evidence. Show us all this research you've been conducting. Super sleuth, mommy sleuth, isn't that what they call themselves? All right, little girl. All right, little mommy sleuth, where's our data? You want to play in the man's game? Where's your research? We're not playing all that other stuff. You want to go and sit in the knitting circle and talk about the other bitches about drama, go ahead. That's your prerogative. But you want to play in the man's world and talk about conspiracies, you got to show us the numbers. But anyway, that's that. I do want to move on. I want to get into the Greenland situation. This is a really important thing. And I told you on Monday we're going to get into all the biggest stories from the past couple of weeks. I don't know that Greenland was really in the news today, but it's been back in the news in the past couple of weeks. and it's been talked about, especially since Trump got back into office, that this administration is seriously looking at a way to acquire Greenland, either by purchasing it through negotiation, through military force. And finally, today, there was an announcement, this is from Fox News Digital, that the State Department is preparing a package to purchase Greenland from Denmark for $700 billion. That is the latest. And this is a story from Fox. It says, quote, President Trump's push for the U.S. to acquire Greenland could carry an estimated price tag of $700 billion. The estimate, reported by NBC News, was said to have been calculated by scholars and former U.S. officials involved in early planning discussions surrounding Trump's interest in acquiring the island as a strategic buffer in the Arctic against adversaries such as Russia and China. Trump wrote on Wednesday, quote, the United States needs Greenland for the purpose of national security. If the United States doesn't act, Russia or China will. He added that anything less than U.S. control of Greenland is unacceptable, and argued that the Arctic territory is vital to American defense interests, including the Golden Dome missile defense system in development. Trump's renewed push has increased tensions with Denmark and other NATO allies. Troops from several European countries deployed to Greenland on Thursday for a 2-day mission aimed at boosting the territory's defenses. France, Germany, Sweden, and Norway are participating in the exercise, according to Fox News, with leaders saying the mission is intended to demonstrate NATO's ability to deploy military assets into the Arctic quickly. Greenland is the world's largest island and has a population of roughly 56,000 people, with most living along its ice-free coastline. About 80% of the territory is covered by ice caps and glaciers. So, of course, this has been a discussion for years. Ever since Trump's first term, there has been this ambition for the United States to, in some way, acquire the Greenland, the Greenland territory. And I know that for a lot of people, this sounds completely random. Most people don't think about Greenland, don't know anything about Greenland, don't know where it is, whose jurisdiction it's under. And so for a lot of people, this is like completely random, completely out of the box. And if you have paid attention, there has been much discussion. At this point, I think it's almost trite about the benefits. So for those that don't know, Greenland is situated in the Arctic Circle, in the northern Atlantic or in the Arctic Ocean, and it is technically under the control of Denmark. It is self-governing, but it's under the jurisdiction of the Kingdom of Denmark, and it's been this way for a long time that they've had a relationship with the Danish government. Trump is interested in either buying it, conquering it, and much has been said about the benefits of this, and we could talk about some of them. First and foremost, people talk about the mineral wealth of Greenland. Greenland has a lot of uranium in the country, or in the territory, I should say, which might be important for future nuclear energy, nuclear weapons. And like with all critical minerals and raw materials, it's a zero-sum game. If we don't have it, then another country will. China has expressed interest in mining the raw materials in Greenland. And so if we don't have them, then China will get them. China will get the uranium. Greenland is also rich in rare earth minerals, which China has a near monopoly on sourcing those and processing those. So people say if we acquire Greenland, we get the uranium and we get the rare earth minerals, which we need for iPhones and for other technology. And that will help us circumvent China's monopoly on some of those critical minerals. Bigger than that, people say, is that in the future, the Arctic is going to become an area of strategic competition. As it stands right now, the North Pole and the Arctic is mostly covered by thick sheets of ice, and this makes it impassable by normal commercial vessels or military vessels. And so as such, there is not a lot of commercial or military activity happening there. If you want to send a cargo ship through the Arctic, you need an icebreaker to go through it. And Russia has more icebreakers than anybody. Other countries have very few or none, and most countries don't build them at all. So for the past century, there's not a lot of activity happening in the Arctic. This is not an area of strategic importance for that reason. In the future, however, it is anticipated that due to climate change, whatever you believe, if it's anthropogenic climate change or if it's natural climate change, it is anticipated that in the future, as the polar ice sheet shrinks, then this area is going to open up. And the Arctic Ocean, like all the other oceans, is going to become a place where there will be significant commercial activity. And so there will be commercial vessels sailing on Russia's north coast. They call this the Northern Sea Route. And so vessels will be moving goods in and out of Siberia in northern Russia to China, to Europe. And this will circumvent the other sea route, which of course goes through the Suez Canal. There's also a major sea route across the Arctic. And then there's a major sea route on Canada's north coast. So this is anticipated to become, again, due to climate change, polar ice sheet melts, there's going to be a lot of commercial shipping there. And then, of course, that becomes an area of strategic competition as well. If you want to control the movement of goods and people, and what goes with that is military personnel and supplies, submarines, you're also going to need to have a military presence there as well to oversee the shipping lanes, to control key choke points. And so just like we talk about the Taiwanese Strait, just like we talk about the Panama Canal, the Suez, this is going to become another area where competition is going to start. And so they say for the purpose of projecting American power in the Arctic, it's important to get as much territory there as possible. In particular, to oversee these shipping lanes, to control choke points where Russian submarines might move, in these choke points between Greenland and Iceland, Iceland and the UK. And so it has to do with sea routes. Now, the other strategic importance, which has been talked about a lot, and maybe this is the biggest one, is how it pertains to missile defense. So for those that don't know, most of Russia's missile silos are around Finland. They're in the north of Russia. And if a Russian intercontinental ballistic missile were to launch at the United States, they're not going east, they're not going west, they're going north over the North Pole into the United States. And Trump explicitly talks about this. He says that we need Greenland for the Golden Dome. What is the Golden Dome? Well, it's obviously a reference to the Iron Dome. Iron Dome is an anti-missile system or an anti-rocket system. It's meant to shoot down projectiles and protect a particular geographic area. The difference, however, is that Iron Dome is meant to protect a very small area from very primitive rockets launched at short range. And so this has to do with a small area looking at a particular trajectory of shorter primitive munitions, like those fired by Hezbollah on Israel's border in northern Israel, southern Lebanon, and like Israel's border with Gaza in southwestern Israel. Golden Dome differs from this because this is a true anti-ballistic missile system. Golden Dome, unlike Iron Dome, is meant to cover a very large area, the entire continental United States. Iron Dome might protect a city from a small rocket. Golden Dome is meant to protect the continental United States from an intercontinental ballistic missile. So the territory's bigger, but also the type of projectile is different too. And how do they differ? A rocket has a very low arc. It goes up, it comes down, and it's pretty simple. It's about how you would imagine it to work. Intercontinental ballistic missile goes up into outer space and then comes down. Some of these hypersonic missiles so fast they're undetectable. And so it's critical when you're intercepting an intercontinental ballistic missile, if it's even possible or reliable, is that you detect it where and when it launches. You get an early warning, and it's strategically located near where the missile is being launched. So if Russia is launching missiles at the United States, you want an anti-ballistic missile system forward deployed closer to where the missiles are being launched. And if you look at Greenland, it is right in the middle of where those missiles would have their trajectory in outer space. It's right in the middle if you look at it from the top of the globe rather than looking at a normal globe or looking at the Mercator projection of a normal map. So they say the real strategic reason, and putting the strategic in strategic defense having to do with strategic weapons, which are nuclear weapons, they say we need Greenland to have early warning systems. We need Greenland to have anti-ballistic missile systems forward deployed against Russia so that we could detect an incoming ICBM. They say that's the reason. So these are kind of the big three reasons they say. And it's like with everything, there's always multiple reasons, multiple justifications given. Like with Venezuela, it's oil, it has to do with Cuba, it has to do with whether Iran, Russia, and China are involved. It has to do with a lot of things. Similarly, Greenland, you've got critical minerals and uranium. You've got these Arctic sea routes, which are going to become competitive. And then you've got missile defense. In my opinion, however, the biggest thing is that Greenland is just close to the United States. It's close to Canada. It's close to the United States. It's close to Iceland. It's close to the United Kingdom. And it is true that in the future, if the North Pole melts and it opens up to commercial and naval vessels, then this is going to become a very relevant piece of territory. And if we do not own it, if we do not have it, it is true that other countries will take it. They will try to take it, and they already are. China published a white paper in 2018 about this. China wants to get into the Arctic Council. Even Russia doesn't want this. There's an Arctic Council of all the nations that have claims in the Arctic. China applied for membership, and Russia even said, Arctic Council, you don't border the Arctic. You're 1,000 miles away from the Arctic. And China said, well, we're a near Arctic power, and we're going to become an Arctic power. So China wants to project power there. Russia wants to project power there. We are engaged, as I said on Monday, in a strategic competition with great power rivals. Whether we like it or not, that is the case. Russia and China. And in particular, we are engaged in a competition with them in this emerging theater of competition and conflict. If we do not take it, they will. They are interested in it, and it is in their interest to take it. China has already made overtures to Greenland, trying to invest in mines, airports, research stations. Why do you think that is? It's the same reason that China took an interest in South and Central America. It's the same reason that China built a space station in Argentina. It's the same reason that China is building deep water ports in Ecuador and Peru, in Jamaica. It's because this is an area where they could potentially threaten the United States. This is an area where they can gain intelligence on the United States. They could forward deploy military assets near the United States. They could disrupt U.S. commercial activities. It's for the same reason. China wants the territory. They want to build stuff there, which is dual use, so they can plant a flag, so they can start bringing their personnel, so that they could start bringing their people, so that they can make Greenland dependent on them, so that one day maybe they could build a military base there. And so this is where, when Trump says we have to have it, it's not enough that we have our troops there. It's not enough that we have access to it. There is no substitute for ownership. And here's why. If America puts its flag down and we say this is now America, this is ours, this is our territory, then there's going to be no Chinese anything. There's going to be no Chinese research station. There's going to be no Chinese anything. And if we wanted them out, we could kick them out. And if they didn't listen, Well, it's backed up by the U.S. military. No ifs, ands, or buts. The United States will defend its own clay. It will defend its own soil. Will defend its own people and personnel and infrastructure. So in the future, China has designs on Greenland. Russia has designs on it. They're getting pushy. They're being sneaky. They're writing up plans about it. If it's in Danish hands, well, who knows what's going to happen? Maybe the next president is out to lunch. Maybe in the future, that NATO Article 5 commitment, maybe it's a little bit less ironclad. Who knows what could happen? China might test. They might test that. Is this a real tripwire? Can we intervene here? And will it trigger U.S. intervention? Is the U.S. going to go to war for a Danish protectorate or something, a Danish vassal, a self-governing member of the Danish kingdom? They might test it. They will test it. And if they will test it and contest it, then they might eventually have it. And that is unacceptable. It is unacceptable for China or Russia to have that piece of territory and be right in the middle of effectively the Atlantic, right in between the United States and the United Kingdom, right on the doorstep of Canada and North America. And so what happens in the future when you have Chinese amphibious assault vehicles and Chinese tanks and Chinese drones and Chinese containerized weapon systems, and they go north through Siberia, out the port, they go across the Arctic, and they bring them to Greenland. And now they're right there again. This is diminishing the distance between the United States and our strategic rivals. So there's no substitute for ownership. And what I would liken this to is Alaska, Hawaii, Cuba, for that matter, Puerto Rico. Could you imagine if there was a scenario where the United States did not control Hawaii, Guam, did not have a military presence in Japan, in the Philippines, in these other countries? We would lose control over the Pacific. China would have broken out already. They would control all that stuff by now. They would have intimidated all these countries. They would have military bases. They wouldn't need to build them in the South China Sea out of nothing. Could you imagine if Alaska was a Russian colony? During the Cold War, we never would have survived that. Could you imagine if Puerto Rico was a colony of some other country? And who knows, if that were invaded, if Cuba was truly under the subjugation of a foreign power, 90 miles from Florida, it's the same thing. And so acquiring Greenland right now seems like it's random, or it's too ambitious, or maybe it's unnecessary for us to actually have it. But that is just simply short-sighted. In 50 years, we will be engaged in a great power competition truly with China. They do have their eyes set. They have designs on these territories. They are trying to pierce the armor in our hemispheric defense, our fortress in the Western Hemisphere. And if we leave that to like Denmark, it's a country with no military. They're in NATO. Russia is testing NATO. Look at what Russia is doing in Europe, sending drones over every airport in Germany and Belgium and Denmark. In all these countries, they are testing that NATO Article 5 guarantee. They do it all the time. In some ways, that's what Ukraine is about, and what this collective security agreement is about with Ukraine. China and Russia don't take Europe seriously. And if that's Danish clay, if that's Danish territory, they're not going to take that seriously. And all that is going to do is set the stage for a crisis down the line, literally no different than Ukraine. Ukraine is another one where it's sort of like an ambiguous guarantee. It was sort of understood in the Budapest Memorandum that we would protect Ukraine, but they're not a NATO member. But they have this sort of collective security understanding with the United States and the West. Russia contested that. They tested the tripwire, and we were forced to come in after. We were forced to try to rush to their defense, and it's not going to work. Russia's going to have it. And mark my words, the same will happen in Greenland. So they're technically part of Denmark, but they have self-rule. China's trying to buy their way in. The United States is temporarily pushing that off. Who knows what could happen down the line if the United States remains on top of that. If China gains a foothold and they try something, once again, we're caught on defense. So the thing about territory is it's like real estate. They're not making any more of it. There's only so much of it. And every country wants to control it, especially in our neighborhood. Our great power rivals want a slice of that. It is a zero-sum game. We want to control territory by them, to contain them, to prepare for a potential attack, to blockade them, choke them off, and the reverse is also true. A lot of people say this is a vanity project. Trump wants to grow the United States. He wants to leave his mark by gaining more territory like James Polk or like other presidents that have expanded the United States. And I think there's probably some truth to it. I don't mind at all. I think that is a healthy incentive. I think America should be getting bigger. We should have more territory. Bring them in and build a military base on top of it. It's in the Western Hemisphere. It's ours. So broadly speaking, I like the imperial ambitions of the United States. The Western Hemisphere is our fortress. That is what we need to defend ourselves. People don't realize we are in danger. We are constantly in danger. Russia and China are testing the waters. They are pushing outward. They do have global ambitions. That is why China wants an Arctic Belt and Road Initiative. They want an Arctic Silk Road, just like they have in the Pacific, just like they have with Latin America, just like they have in the Indian Ocean. They want the same thing in the Arctic because they have global ambitions. And the way that we protect our survival and our economic defense interests is that we have to lock down the entire Western Hemisphere. So people wanted a leader. That was part of the appeal of Trump in 2016. When he came down the escalator, he said, we need a real leader. Not like a small L leader, like, oh, he's the leader of our country. No, we need like a capital L. We need a leader. We need a truly great leader. And what is a great leader other than a leader that takes territory? Other than a leader that gets victories. You know how you're winning? You have more territory than you started out with. That's how you know you're winning. So taking Venezuela, taking Greenland, taking the Panama Canal, taking Cuba. I support these things. Putting the American flag all over the map. I like it. I love that. That's good. That's good for us, and it's good for you. If you're a citizen with a U.S. passport, why would you be against your country getting bigger? If you are a citizen of the United States of America, if you are a U.S. passport holder, why would you oppose your country getting bigger, richer, getting more resources, more stuff, planting our flag in more places? You shouldn't. That's good for us. And what's good for us is good. That's what America First means. It means the survival and prosperity of the American people first. And by the way, as far as Greenland is concerned, it really begs the question. There are 55,000 people on this island. 55,000. Do people realize what a small number that is? There are 3 million people living in the city of Chicago. 55,000 in the largest island in the world. That's nothing. It's nothing. They don't have a military. They don't have industry. They survive off of like fishing. Okay? These are like fishing villages in the Arctic, and there's no people, and there's no industry, and there's no military. And people say, well, it's technically Denmark's. Okay, who cares? And how big is Denmark? And what kind of military do they have? How many people live in Denmark? What kind of economy do they have? What kind of military do they have? And so what? They showed up a couple hundred years ago. Now it's theirs forever? No, I don't think so. Oh, and now we just have to let him have it. No, this giant island with all the uranium and all the rare earths sitting in this strategically important region, it belongs to the 20,000 Eskimos. No one can touch it. No one touch it. No one look at it. It's theirs. And technically it's also Denmark's because, I don't know, they came there a little while ago. What are you talking about? Another bigger country is going to kick down the door. If it makes China more able to destroy us, China will destroy them. They will gobble it up. Are you stupid? If you are a giant island with fresh water, uranium, critical minerals, you're right next to the United States, and you got 50,000 people that cannot defend the island. Do you think China is going to let that stand in the way of a platform to attack the United States? Of course not. If they could, they would take it in a heartbeat. They can, they have the capability. It's just that right now it might not be strategically viable because it's controlled by a NATO country. Maybe they don't want to challenge the United States. But of course, it is a matter of national security for China or Russia to have it. And it wouldn't take them a second to think about whether they would devour that territory. But we have to be the stupid people and think about national sovereignty and, well, it's technically Denmark's. And, well, Denmark is going to let us. Denmark is going to let us try and stop us. I love that. Well, Denmark lets us put our military there. Denmark lets us use Greenland for our military. I would like to see Denmark try and stop us. As a matter of fact, I would like to see all of Europe try to stop us. They let us use Greenland. They let us do whatever we want. Try and stop us from doing whatever we want. The difference is we spend $1 trillion per year on our military. The biggest other country in the European Union, in NATO, they spend $65 billion. That's the difference. I see all these idiot commentators in the UK, in Europe. They say, oh, this is ridiculous. The United States doesn't need to have it. We already let them use it. Let us try and stop us. It's the opposite. We let you have your countries. We let you exist. Who do you think was holding back the Soviet Union for 50 years, idiot? What do you think was standing in the way of 100,000 Soviet tanks, which would have never stopped in Germany, by the way, if it wasn't for us? What do you think was standing in between them and the whole rest of Europe for 50 years, preventing them from marching all the way from Berlin to Lisbon? What do you think was standing in the way of them? And then mounting an amphibious assault in the UK? It was us. That was the United States of America, which maintained the second largest nuclear arsenal, which built a strategic air force, which has the burden of a military-industrial complex. That was us. You let us use Greenland? No, we let you exist as Europe. You're welcome. You should be grateful that we don't take a whole lot more. We could take Greenland, we could take Copenhagen, we could take Portugal, we could take Spain, we could take all of it. You think the United Kingdom could stop us? Try. Seriously, try. They can't stop Russia. They can't stop China. You think they could stop us? I'm getting really sick of this belligerence from the Europeans. I don't know who they think they are. They get together and say, well, we're demanding a collective security agreement for Ukraine. We already let the United States use Greenland. I don't know what they're on about. They need to have it. We need to have it because you can't defend it. Denmark does not have a military-industrial complex. As far as we're concerned, they don't have a military. That's why we need to have it. We need to have it because we can defend it. You can't. And you can't defend it because you've spent all your money on welfare for Africans. That's the difference. You can't defend it because for the last 100 years, we've spent all our money on bombs and planes and guns and tanks and aircraft carriers, and you spent it on free healthcare and free education so that you wouldn't have the burden. You're welcome. They say, why do you have to have it? Because you cannot defend it. Greenland can't defend themselves. Denmark can't defend Greenland. The whole European Union couldn't defend Greenland from China or from us. So they shouldn't have it. If it's a national security interest for us, then we must have it. Enough with these like exercises. We're going to pay obeisance to these like Western European countries with no military. Hey guys, could we buy this from you? What do you mean? It's totally crazy. And I think on some level, that is part of the frustration. It is that we pay for this giant military. We have suffered from social atomization, and we no longer get any of the benefits of any of it. Right? You and your parents and your grandparents have been paying for this giant military for our entire lives. And we don't have any of the benefits of it. We just get humiliated everywhere. We lose everywhere. We invade countries. It really doesn't even matter to us. It's not really, we do it on behalf of Israel. So we have this empire, but like none of the benefits of it. We don't have any of the decisive, tangible victories. We neglect our own neighborhood while fighting in Israel's neighborhood. And as it pertains to capitalism, we have this free market system, this international trade system, a fiat money system, and we're not even rich anymore. And we're not even rich. Nobody's even rich anymore. People have roommates. People are like 29 with roommates. They're building these like tiny homes where you have to climb a ladder to get to a loft. You have the shrinkflation at Chipotle and everywhere else. So the spirit of our nation has been killed. Like the vitality of our nation has been killed by empire and capitalism, but we don't even have the benefits. We're not rich and we're not powerful. So how do we reverse this? We need to give a life-affirming spirit to our country, and we need to enthusiastically embrace mercantilism, autarky, empire. Let's breathe some life into the country. Let's start taking some territory for ourselves. Let's make it work for us. Let's make ourselves rich and powerful again. Let's take Greenland. Let them worry about it. You want to protect Ukraine? You start spending some money on your military, pussy. Europe has been getting free healthcare and free pot and free education because we defend them. Now you want us to defend Ukraine on your behalf. You pay for your military. We're pulling up the drawbridge to Fortress America here. We take Greenland. So anyway, that's a truly America First mentality. And people need to get more in the spirit of that. That is what America is. People need to get comfortable that that is what America has always been. When has America ever stopped expanding? Question. You know, all these people want to talk about heritage Americans. I'm sorry, are we still 13 colonies? People talk about founding stock. Well, what happened after we founded the country? We just kept expanding. Always more territory, more war, more conquest, more settlements. And when we took the whole continental United States, we went into the oceans, more. Puerto Rico, Guam, Philippines, Cuba, Alaska, Hawaii. And then after World War II, we built a global empire. We built U.S. bases in Japan and Germany, everywhere in the world. This is what we always do. So people say, we need to get back to this time when America's a republic and, you know, we just hang out within our own borders. No, wrong. We need an imperial presidency for an American empire. We've been in one for a long time, but we don't call it that. We've done it for everybody else. It's been this altruistic empire. We need to become an empire that is America first. We need to start getting some of the benefits. So take Greenland. Take Greenland. You can buy it, fine, buy it. You don't want to upset the Europeans. I understand that. There's arguments behind that, which we could flesh out at another point. You know, buy it, do it through in a way that's legitimizing But acquire Greenland, acquire Canada, acquire Venezuela, acquire Cuba, acquire Colombia. And a lot of people disagree with this. They say this is a terrible idea. We want to add all these people to our country. We have to reimagine everything. And I said it at the top of the show kind of jokingly. I said, on the show, I'm always talking about how America should expand. And people say, well, if you expand America, you're just throwing your borders around more brown people. And then they're going to vote for Democrats. Who said anything about letting them vote? Giving them electoral representation? Nobody said that. Nobody said that at all. And we didn't even say necessarily we would formally annex them, but just take control over the situation. It's staggering how many people just negotiate against themselves. And this is why I do have some admiration for these autocrats in other countries, because they just go and do it. China is just building ships 400 times more tonnage than we are even capable of. They're just doing it. They want to contest the border with India. They just build whole new towns on the border with India. They send a bunch of people there. They build highways, bridges, airports. They build whole cities and nobody even lives in them. And, that's not like a good economic policy, but they just do it. They build islands in the middle of the South China Sea. It's totally illegal. They do it anyway. They just have this can-do mentality. And I wish we had that in America. Instead, we have this very small thinking. We got to get away from a petty, small version of American nationalism where it says like, hey man, we just want to take over the government to leave everybody alone. We want to withdraw all our bases and, we just want to close the borders and we just want to hang out and be chill. We need to embrace a larger perspective of what America First can be. And that means putting ourselves on a global scale. So I'm totally in favor of it. And that doesn't mean giving women the right to vote in Afghanistan. It means like take the minerals that we need. Like why would we be in a hostage situation over rare earths with China? Just go and invade the other countries that have them. I'm not worried about building a democracy in Afghanistan so that women have the right to vote. I'm worried if we have the critical minerals that we need, the antimony and, rare earths and bauxite and copper and lithium and uranium, and we want the things that we need. Those are the kinds of interventions that we need. We need territory to defend the Western Hemisphere. We need platforms to control international trade. We need to control the choke points. We need to have a reliable source of energy, not just fossil fuels, but everything else. Like, this is what we need to do. We need to win the race in the 21st century. So I love it. And I just love the spirit of it. I really am a huge believer. This is the last thing I'll say about it. I really am just a believer in the vibe. I see these edits on TikTok and Instagram. They play Around the World, that old song, that like electro pop, like Euro pop song from the 90s, Around the World. And it's a map of the US flag in America, Greenland, Cuba, Venezuela. And I'm like, this is changing the consciousness. It's surreal. This feels like the future is being brought forth. Because for so long, my entire life, you grow up in America and there's this suffocating sense of dread that the best times are behind us. Doesn't it feel like that? That the best times are not only behind us, but they're long gone. We are on the other side of the hill, and all that is left for us is to see our country slowly die and deteriorate and then cease to exist. That is the consciousness that we grew up in. People say it's a late stage empire, late stage republic. All that is waiting for us is ruin. It's a slow, inexorable descent into extinction. and all the good stuff is behind us and it's just over. And on top of that are these feelings of guilt and shame. This feeling that we are not capable of doing anything. We're weak. We lost. We were in control and now we're not. We had all the power and now we don't. It was our time and now it isn't. Now it's someone else's turn. We are at the back of the line and the future belongs to every other country. The future belongs to China. The future belongs to India. We used to have a rule of the roost and now it's our turn to shut up, get put in our place, and listen to the UN. Like that has been the feeling our whole lives as a society, as a civilization, and it weighs on us as individuals. Why would anyone dream big? Why would anyone have dreams, aspirations, if this is our country? What's the end game? Go and get some office job, see a movie, go on vacation, wait to be replaced by Indians and Hispanics and Chinese people and Muslims? And here we are in the 2020s, and you sort of raise your eyebrow. You go, oh, what's that over there? America's getting bigger? Colonialism isn't over. We can actually just do things. We can kidnap a dictator. We can take Greenland. America's growing again. There's a spirit of revival. There's a spirit of growth. There's a spirit of adventure. There's a sense of confidence, taking what we want, doing what is in our best interest. We can stick up for ourselves. Our survival and prosperity matters. We can fight for it like every other nation does. We're in the fight still. We're still in the game. I like that feeling. I like the idea. Yeah, Greenland. Didn't know about it. Now it's ours. Never heard of it. Know nothing about it. It's the latest U.S. territory that our strong and powerful and respected president just annexed. Maybe I'll go there sometime. I don't know, because I can. I like that. I like that idea. I like that feeling. And even if, again, I think Trump is very incompetent. I think that, there's a lot of things he's not doing well. But I've always said that he really embodies, even if he is not the fulfillment of it, even if he is an imperfect instantiation, he embodies something powerful. He's tapping into something powerful. A strong leader, American revanchism, self-confidence on the world stage. It's not something I think that we have a lot of opportunities to get. This doesn't come around a lot, and I think we're getting less of it all the time. So I do embrace it. There's something really remarkable, especially where we came from, because I think it's very important that I grew up in the Obama years. Like my childhood was in the Obama years. And so as a very young boy, you grow up with the Iraq war being a disaster. We're in the recession. And the idea is that America is the bad guy. We're the evil empire. We're criminals. Our leaders lied us into a war. We're just a big, corrupt, stupid country. I think about that Jeff Daniels monologue from the newsroom. That was like, oh my gosh, that was like the viral clip of my childhood. That clip from Jeff Daniels in the newsroom where he says, when you say America's the #1 country in the world, I don't know what you're talking about. The only thing America leads the world in is people in prison, military spending, and people that believe in angels. And many of the Jews on the left made us feel this way. They made us feel like Jon Stewart made us feel like dumb Fuckistan. He made us feel like we're a big country of dumb Christians and corrupt politicians that went to war for oil, and we're the bad guys. We terrorize everybody. We're the real invaders. We are now the evil empire. And then Obama comes in with all these other smart-ass liberals, and they were telling our country, your time is over. America's not exceptional. America's not great. The Monroe Doctrine is over. We have to ask the UN. We're ready to bow to every other country. We're ready to bow to the president of Cuba. We're ready to bow to the whole world and just surrender everywhere. So compared to where we came from to where we are now, We have a president that's flipping people off, and they call him daddy in Europe, and he's pulling dictators out of bed and throwing them in jail. He wants to invade Greenland. I love it. I have to be honest with you. I love it. I don't like bombing Iran. I think that's a bad idea. And I don't think the mass deportations are happening enough. But the energy, and here is, this is the real last thing I'm going to say. So here's the trick. We have to get in the middle of these feelings. What do I mean by this? Trump is phase one. Trump breaks down the door, shatters the Overton window. He makes it possible. He is 1.0. He is the John the Baptist figure. He wakes everybody up, defeats the media, political correctness. But he does not complete the mission. He does not fulfill the aspirational promise of MAGA and America First. But he lights the fire. He sparks the embers. How do you get in the middle? The question is about succession. We're fighting for control of the narrative about Trump. And there's a few narratives. One, Trump is a sellout, a con man, a failure. He was always a con man. He was always a failure. He was compromised along the way. We throw his legacy in the garbage. It's nothing. That's one narrative. The other narrative in the middle, well, you know, Trump is doing a really great job and we got to keep America great. We got to vote for J.D. Vance, his vice president. You know, Trump started it and we got to keep it going. Trump is the greatest president and we got to keep the winning coming. And we got to keep these moderate solutions going. Narrative number 3. Trump has the right idea. America first, make America great again, saying Merry Christmas again. These are powerful ideas. But they're ideas that cannot be fully realized in one presidential term, in one decade, by one man. He started the fight, but he was limited by the circumstances of his time. We're frustrated with the lack of progress. We're frustrated with how he was sabotaged, subverted, in some ways perhaps compromised. But we have to build upon his legacy. We have to take the torch, the true inheritors of America First, and deepen it, expand it, carry it forward. We have to get more radical, not less. We have to be right-wing progressives. We have to take it further than Trump did. Trump says, I want to deport the illegal gang members. I say take away the naturalization of people that have no allegiance to the country. Trump says, we'll administer Venezuela, appoint a viceroy, take the oil, restrain Israel. Forget about bombing Iran, restrain Israel. Trump is going to cut down waste, fraud, and abuse in the federal government, eliminate entire departments, entire agencies, build new ones, build new systems, new agencies, new departments. Have to take it further, have to go harder. And the reason why the latter is the best is because if you go and tell everybody, hey, the last 10 years was all terrible, it's very demoralizing. It also puts you at odds with a lot of people that did fight and sacrifice for this very big and successful political movement. Whatever you want to say about it, Trump tapped into something, won these 2 huge elections with 60 million, 70 million voters. And there's a lot of people that are emotionally, professionally, personally invested in it. And to turn around and say, oh, it's all bad, it's all awful, it's all a mistake, it puts you at odds with those people. It makes it as though it were in vain. It's very demoralizing. And I also think it's just wrong. I don't think that everything Trump did was a mistake. I think that on net, Trump is good, defeating political correctness, getting people to think of America first, changing the conversation on immigration. 10 years ago, nobody was talking about mass deportations. Nobody was even talking about like building a border wall. It just wasn't there. Now, that's where the new right-wing consensus is. Build a wall, mass deportations, not good enough, restrict legal immigration. So I also just think it's wrong. On net, there's many good things about Trumpism. It's just that like with any movement, It is subject to constraints, limitations, political realities. And so our job is to take the baton and carry it forward and really just be inspired by that energy. That is so much of the battle, is just waking up and believing that we can do the impossible. And that means dreaming. It's very important to dream big, dreaming of an American empire. It's important to imagine what we want. And what I don't want is like some wholesome Chungus republic. No, we're not living and fighting and dying so that you can work in a nail factory like your grandpap did and marry some, Midwestern mid and have a couple of kids out on the, no, that's actually not aspirational. So many of these people, the heritage Americans, they say, there's plenty of cheap property in like rural Indiana. And if you work at the nail factory that's polluting the river, you can buy a $100,000 2-bedroom shanty and find some gas station mid, or better yet, you could run a Subway franchise. And it's like, we want a Roman Empire in space. That gets people excited. This does not running a Subway franchise does not get people excited. So it's important to dream. It's important to think big. It's important to understand that, we need people to really, the power of belief cannot be overstated here. So anyway, so that's that. But I do want to move on. We'll take a look at our super chats. That's my take on Greenland. But let's see. We'll see what you guys have to say about all this. I'm going to get set up here and we'll listen in. I don't know how anybody doesn't relate to that. I guess it's a generational thing. Because I noticed that when I was supporting the intervention in Venezuela, it was all like Gen X people that were like, "Duh, we can't go to war." But all the Zoomers loved it. All the Zoomers on Instagram and TikTok, they love it. It's the Gen Xers that are like, "Hey, bro, this is like the Iraq War." Millennials and Xers, they don't get it. All right, but let's take a look at the super chats. Let's see what you guys have to say about all this.
All right, let's get right to it. So what it comes down to it for me is we need to figure out who we are, what we want to be, and whether or not we're okay with being colonizers and leaning more into imperialism. So very quickly, just looked up the definition of both. What is colonialism? Colonialism is the practice of acquiring full or partial political control over another country, occupying it with settlers and exploiting it economically. Are you okay with America being that? Nick is pushing for it. He said he's cool with it. He uses certain rhetoric, like just take their stuff. Half the times he's saying that he's joking, but then he comes back to it at the end of the show and kind of doubles down on it. So cool. But what I'm saying is we just have to make the decision of whether or not we're okay being that as America, right? Imperialism, a policy or ideology of extending a nation's rule or authority over foreign countries, either directly or indirectly. So extending a nation's rule when it comes to imperialism, colonialism mentioned exploiting that particular place economically. Are we okay with that? And I think what has happened is for so long, America has been on top, number one, the dominant power, or at least we considered ourselves that. And regardless of the stats when it comes to like, oh, we're last in education, I think it's understood that America has been the most powerful force in the country for a while, right? Okay. With that, we had the privilege of presenting ourselves, of having this moral compass, right? That, hey, we are a democracy. We criticize other people. They don't give their women the right to vote. They do this, they do that. But here in America, we have certain standards and a moral compass that is above all of these other countries, right? So we always were able to stand on that. But that's only when we've been privileged to be on top. Now it seems like, okay, with China having certain resources, Russia, a lot of these other countries that we see as adversaries, now it seems like, oh, there's a threat to us being on top. So now we're willing to compromise our morals and principles and values that we used to stand on from this high horse that we were looking at everybody else from. And now we're willing to throw all that away and say, nah, it's time to get back to colonialism. It's time to get back to imperialism. So the question that I have is just, are we okay with that? Now it's clear that Nick is okay with that. Are you okay with that? And how does that stand up against previous arguments that we've had? When we talk about Israel and Palestine, were you against the genocide because it's a genocide and you just don't think from a moral standpoint any country should be committing a genocide against, another country? Or did you just stand up against it because, hey, I just don't want to be involved with it. I don't care that it's a genocide, but I just don't want us using our resources for another country, for them to commit colonialism and imperialism. So that's kind of the question. And we're going to get into that because I think for a lot of the same reasons that Nick is condoning and promoting us going after Greenland, us going out after whatever other countries and just taking them over, not giving them representation as far as voting, but just running their country, as he said. We're going to get into that. Oh, the reason I'm saying, I think he's doing it for the same reasons that Bibi Netanyahu justifies a lot of this stuff. When you talk about Greenland, and Nick wasn't necessarily on board with it from a standpoint as far as like safety, even though he was saying like, if you look from outer space or on top of the globe, Greenland is in a strategically important place for us when it comes to defense. Now, I don't think Nick was leaning as into that as he was just saying, look, regardless of all that, it's close to us. So therefore, it makes sense for us to control it. He talked about Denmark and all this other stuff. But I think there's a lot of similarities between the reasons why Nick is saying that we should be cool with colonialism and imperialism compared to Bibi Netanyahu's Greater Israel Project. But we're going to take a pause on that. We're going to talk briefly about Candace Owens, and then we'll get back into the conversation around colonialism and imperialism. So when it comes to Candace, we all know Nick and Candace have had this ongoing beef. A lot of us like Candace, a lot of us like Nick, right? But it doesn't seem like they're going to resolve a lot of their issues anytime soon. And I think that they're actually moving further apart from each other than where they previously were. I thought before they actually did the interview with, before they sat down and had a conversation, I thought that they were aligned with a bunch of things. But then Nick made the comments about the sub-Saharan African IQs, whatever, that went left. And I think now from a policy standpoint, they're actually splitting. So before, I think it was just from a emotional like feelings type of thing where I just don't like you. But now I think they're actually splitting from a policy standpoint as well. So let's get into some of this conversation about Candace. And I do think that Candace is losing credibility. Let me be very clear. I like Nick's show a lot more than I like Candace's show. It's very hard for me to watch Candace's show. It's not really, I don't think it's designed for me. It's just, I try to look at it sometimes and I'm just like, nah. Like, it's just not my communication style, not for me. Nick, I like Nick's communication style. May not agree with Nick, definitely don't agree with Nick. And a lot of people been hitting me up, telling me like, yo, you've been on Nick, you've been doing all this. Bruh, I don't have to agree with everything that Nick says. And newsflash, you don't have to either. I know you may feel like you have to, but you don't. And actually, people just agreeing with Nick no matter what, you're actually doing him a disservice, in my opinion, because that's what messes up a lot of people when they get in these high positions where they do become influential and powerful. They have a bunch of yes people around them, rather than having people that are supposed to guide them and check them and keep them on task. And just like we all need that, right? We all need that. But then you get people that are just yes man in you. And I think that you could find yourself a little bit lost as far as your stances and what your principles and morals may now eventually become. So neither here nor there, whatever. But when it comes to Candace, I'm with Nick on a lot of this stuff. I don't like the rhetoric that Nick has used in the past when it comes to Candace or whatever. Like a lot of that stuff, I'm focusing on what's the substance of the argument. That's what I try to stay focused on. Candace is losing a lot of credibility. A lot of the stuff that she says seems silly. And when you say certain things that seem silly and when you're willing to have everything on the table and then, hey, we'll just let the process play out and we'll eliminate things as they come. That's cool. But when you say certain things, and I don't even know if what Nick said is true about what Candace, if that is, I tried to look it up as far as Candace saying that Charlie Kirk would jog and then the lights would flicker as he's going past the lights because he had some type of energy, I guess she's assuming. I didn't see that, but it's getting a bit out of hand, perhaps, if you're not going to then have certain things that you're credibly standing on and delivering on the things that you promised. If you said that you were going to deliver this digital map, then you should deliver the digital map, or just simply come out and say, like, my bad, I was wrong on this. Doesn't make sense to deliver this digital map. That's why I haven't put it out. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Admitting that you're wrong about something. And I think you lose more credibility when you continue to just double down on things rather than to just admit, like, yeah, I messed up on that one. Or it's not even, it gets to a point where you not being able to admit that it's wrong. Now it puts the blame on you, where you could embrace maybe saying, like, hey, we just bring a bunch of stuff to the table and it's my job to now go through this, throw out what's garbage, hold on to what we still may need to process a bit more, and deliver everything that, hey, this is what we're set in stone on. We'll deliver that to the public and be transparent with all of them, because then it's not about you. But when you double down and when you make certain deliverables known, or you say you're going to deliver on certain things and you don't, of course you're going to lose credibility. Of course you're going to lose credibility. So let's, and a lot of this stuff, I have to admit, I am a bit naive and ignorant on, because I don't watch her show. But when it comes to something as simple as that, a deliverable, hey, we're going to release this digital map, you just got to deliver it. Now, maybe Candace, somebody will say that, hey, Candace actually did come out and say that she's not. Maybe that will be the case. But from my vantage point, it does seem like she's losing a bit of credibility. So let's keep going. Let's keep going with the notes. Yeah, once again, Candace has to, I think Candace has to come with something meaningful. And people may say, well, that's not fair to her. She's just evaluating and looking into it, and nobody else had the courage to look into it. I appreciate that. But the way that this thing works is just like you benefited early on and, being the #1 podcast, making a whole lot of money. Now, if you do not deliver on something meaningful, I actually think that it is going to significantly hurt her and hurt her credibility, hurt her ratings, all of the above. She may end up putting herself in a position like Ben Shapiro has put himself into, where he's losing thousands of followers every day, thousands of subscribers. So, I mean, the best way to remedy it, just keep it real across the board. If you did mess up, that's a big if. If you think that you messed up, then just acknowledge it and we can keep it moving. So, and that's just my standpoint as a descendant of low IQ sub-Saharan. You got to have jokes with all this stuff, man. It is what it is. It is what it is. The best way to show that you got a higher IQ is to perhaps demonstrate some emotional intelligence, be able to laugh, be able to joke about certain things. Don't take everything too seriously, but stand on the substance of the conversations. So if it's okay with y'all, I'm going to just leave y'all there when it comes to Candace. We touched on that, but now let's get back to the real conversation around whether or not we are okay as Americans being colonizers and people that lean into imperialism. So are we okay with that? From a moral standpoint, are we okay with that? From a principled standpoint, are we okay with that? And we have to understand that a lot of this stuff that we may do while we're in such a position of strength, somebody else may do to us if and when they're in a position of strength. Now, a lot of people may argue and say, well, this is why we got to do it, to make sure that we're always #1, to make sure that if anybody's taking advantage and colonizing anybody, that it's us, not anybody else. That may be the stance. That may be the stance. That may be on brand for what America is. But once again, we just have to go back to that question. Are we okay with being colonizers? And it seems like maybe in the last 10, 15 years, when people have called out America for being colonizers, it seems that people get offended by it. But now there seems to be some type of embrace from it. So the question still remains, what are we okay with? What are we okay with teaching to our kids? What are we okay with teaching to the next generation, to where they are going to take the baton and they're going to end up leading? Is it okay to teach them like, yo, it's okay for you to go and just take somebody else's stuff? If you have a more powerful army, if you have a more leverage over somebody, it's okay for you to just take their things. But then I go from a standpoint of how does that apply to other areas of life? And now people may say, well, just because it applies to this area doesn't mean that it applies to another. Is that really standing on principles? Or are we just, once again, throwing out principles and just doing whatever we feel that we want to do at the time, and being willing to just compromise all of those values that we may have had, compromise that moral compass, and just do whatever we feel that we need to do right now to make sure that we're on top? These are the thoughts that come to mind. These are the thoughts that come to mind. So let's get, and I mentioned before when I did the intro, is that isn't this the same reasoning behind Bibi Netanyahu doing everything that he's doing over there in the Middle East? Isn't this the same reasoning? And the more that I hear Nick talk about colonizing and imperialism, I mean, I have to admit that it just reminds me of, well, you know, just like Israel was founded on land that was stolen, so was America. And I need to be reminded of that. I don't think that it's necessarily something that we need to speak and remind people of every day. It is what it is. That's what most land was created by. Somebody took somebody's stuff and you kept it as long as you could protect it until somebody else took it, and then they had to keep it as long as they protect it. But is that the world that we want to live in? That's the only question that I'm asking. I'm not even right now, just to have the conversation. I don't even want to make it as far as like, well, you're good or well, you're a bad person. I don't want to make it about that. I'm just asking the question, are we okay with our standards being here? Yes or no? Are we okay with our standards being here? Let's keep going. And the reason why, this is why it's kind of the easiest way to make the argument, or to make us consider the argument. Once again, are we okay with what Israel's doing, but we just don't want them using us to do it? But then it goes to a point where if we're all about colonizing, then maybe Israel is our greatest ally. If we are all about colonizing and imperialism, then wouldn't it make sense for Israel to be our greatest ally? So for all those people like Nick who says that, you know, Israel, why are they our greatest ally? Tucker Carlson, Israel, they don't seem like our greatest ally. Well, that's determined based on what type of country we are and what type of principles we're standing on. Because if we are the colonizers, if we are going to lean into imperialism, then I would have to say that seems like Israel makes sense for us to align with them and them to be our greatest ally, if that's our mindset. So we can't have it all ways. We may think that we can, but we can't have it all ways as far as us standing on this moral high ground when it comes to us pointing down and criticizing Israel, if we're willing to do the same thing. And maybe Israel, if you stand on that argument, maybe Israel has more of a defense than America. Israel's surrounded by their enemies, right? We have water protecting us. So if we're willing to go to certain lengths and go to a certain extent where we're willing to colonize and imperialize different countries, I hope that's a word, imperialize, then how can we look down on the principles of Bibi Netanyahu and Israel? Just a question, but let's keep going with the notes. Let's keep going with the notes. Yeah. So Nick, once again, he was joking around. What did he say? He says he's going full imperialist and wouldn't let them vote. So all these countries that we're going to take over, it's full imperialist. We're not letting them vote. We're just controlling. So pretty much this is taxation, or I'll say exploitation without representation. Are we cool with it? Yes or no? I don't want to have this good versus bad debate on it. Let's just establish who we're comfortable being, and then we can determine whether it's good or bad later on. So he said, he even said, so he acknowledged that it's colonialism in the beginning, and then it kind of sounds irrelevant because as we look through the rest of the show, and I'm writing my notes as he's speaking. So as we moved on to the rest of the show, Nick stood on it completely.
He stood on it completely. Now, he tried to present it, like I said in the beginning, as if it's a joke. He said certain things like they're going to be subjects, colonies, not states. But then afterwards, after he initiates the conversation saying he's joking, obviously later on in the show, he makes it pretty clear to me, unless I'm missing something, I'm sure y'all will let me know, that he's perfectly fine with that. That's exactly what it would be. Matter of fact, I don't see that being an exaggeration at all. If you are colonizing a group, if you're imperializing a group, then it is just that. They are going to be our subjects, because if they don't have representation, like Nick said, we're not going to have them vote, because that was a lot of people's hesitation is saying like, hey, you take over some of these places, then we're now pretty much bringing an entire different group into vote as part of our country, which is kind of the strategy that the Democrats tried to do, which is just to try to bring as many people in, 10 million people in a few years that we're bringing in, so they can now create the next Democratic voting bloc that they can create victims out of. They can give them all these social programs and whatnot, so therefore they'll feel like they owe the Democrats something and vote with them in the future. If we're not giving them the right to vote, then it's not an exaggeration at all. They will be subjects. So let's keep it moving. So Nick was breaking down the Golden Dome versus the Iron Dome. I wasn't as familiar with that, but that's when he's talking about the Golden Dome. He said it's meant to protect the continental United States from an intercontinental ballistic missile. So the ballistic missiles are a little bit different than the other missiles that are more traditional, that Nick said they are what we would think of as being a regular missile. But the ballistic missiles, they actually go out of space and come down. So therefore, a lot of people are saying that's one of the reasons why Greenland is strategically important, because the trajectory of the missile, we would need Greenland to form that dome, so none of those missiles can come and impact and hit the United States. That's a tough position to be in. Let me just kind of step back out of this kind of moral place that I may have had my mind in and just think about it from a standpoint of, if it is important from a defense mechanism for us to be in control of Greenland, is it okay to just take it over? Now, obviously, I think y'all won't be surprised with me saying, and I'm thinking about this in real time, because I just decided to ask myself the question, and y'all will see me process it in real time. I'm cool with that. May make a mistake, but if I do, I'll double back. I would like a more diplomatic approach. I would love to be able to work out something with Greenland. I'm not sure that I believe as much as Nick believes that if we don't take over and take it, then China will take it or somebody else will take it. I think that it's perfectly okay to go to Greenland, go to Denmark and say, hey, this is essential for our protection. We don't want to just take y'all over and colonize y'all. However, we need to make sure that we can have access to this, access to that, to make sure that we're in the right place as far as defending our country. And depending on how they respond, I would say, hey, well, let's work out something where it's just letting you know, if you start to do any dealings that compromise this particular agreement that protects the United States, then we may have to take certain measures, that get as far as getting involved with other countries. And still, from a moral standpoint, I don't know if I'm okay with that, but I would like more of a diplomatic solution to it. Now, maybe that's what Trump's doing. Maybe that's what he's negotiating. Maybe that's why he's making some of these threats, so therefore that we can have a more diplomatic solution. But it just, see, this is why, for me, it has to go to the foundational root of the problem. This is why when we talk about these nuclear weapons, they only justify us now having to go to certain lengths to protect ourselves, to now we have to take over other countries and whatnot. I'm just not for nuclear weapons, period. Get rid of them all. Get rid of all the nuclear weapons. Now, how do you get rid of all nuclear weapons? That's a tough position. That's a tough position, but it's one of those things where it's like, when we sit back, is it okay for us to say, hey, we're the only ones that can have nuclear weapons, or countries that align with us, and if you don't, we're going to prevent you from doing it. We're going to bomb your facilities. We're going to do whatever, go to whatever measures that we need to in order to make sure that you never develop a nuclear weapon. this is when you get into that conversation of what's right, what's fair, and I don't want to look at it solely from that standpoint, but it's just very hard for me to sit back and think like, damn, we can have a nuclear weapon, but we'll bomb another country if they try to develop one for themselves. It does seem a little bit or a lot. It's what is it called? Maybe it is a moral issue with it. Maybe that is the best way to describe it. But that's why for me, and a lot of y'all may say like, bro, all this talk of no wars, all this talk of war actually being the crime, all this talk of not having nuclear weapons, that's you're living in a fantasy world. Perhaps that may be the case. I totally take that. I may be living in a fantasy world that is unlikely to actually happen. However, what's the alternative? Like, we have to understand, like, and when I say we have to understand, let me complete that thought and then I'll add on what I was going to add on. But we have to understand where that's going to lead to, right? Now we're just always going to be in a place where we're going to war with anybody that we don't want to create a nuclear weapon for them, if they try to create a nuclear weapon, to protect themselves and to protect their country. I know we look at America as just America, but I mean, does not even a little bit of you think about other countries and say, well, they got to also look out for themselves and look out for their protection. If Israel has a nuclear weapon, then of course Iran's going to want to have a nuclear weapon. Just look at the past of what Israel's done in that region. Why would any country not want to have a nuclear weapon to protect themselves? Just like the United States of America, we want nuclear weapons to protect ourselves. And this is why I say it's got to go back to that foundational root where we just got to get rid of all the nuclear weapons or continue living this type of way. Continue living this type of way to where it's always going to be a threat to go to war if anybody's trying to develop enough weaponry to defend their country. So I'm not saying that this is an easy thing, but I'm just saying that there does need to be an extended amount of consideration going into a lot of these decisions, because in a lot of ways, America, we shape the world. We shape the world. And if we adopt what may end up leading us to be what I would call a demonic energy and committing a lot of evil and having that energy spread throughout the world, then this could turn real ugly. This could turn real ugly. Like, we know where this ultimately leads to. Now, if we think that, this is what it is, and we just have to make sure that we win all the time to ensure our safety, what if we get to a position where we're not winning? What type of world are we setting up maybe future generations of Americans for if that's the standard that we set around the world, that, hey, whoever's in control, you get to dominate, colonize, imperialize, once again, if that's a word, whoever it is that you want to, including America. If China becomes the world power, are we going to be okay with if China just, starts bombing us when we start maybe bombing our nuclear facilities because they have more power than us, they have more leverage, to where we won't do anything back because we know that they could just press a button and their guns are bigger than ours? We gotta just evaluate what type of world that we want to create. I don't want to have the conversation around, oh, well, this is good or this is bad or this. What type of world do we want to create? And are we okay with the consequences that are going to come from us creating that type of world? All right, let's keep going with the notes. Nick says, what is a leader that doesn't take territory? Hold on, did I skip anything? Oh, very quickly on Greenland. So I did want to bring this up. So Nick believes that Greenland is just close because it's close to the United States. But Nick did say that China published a paper in 2018 in which he believes that if we don't take it, they're going to take it. So Nick is saying that other countries have already been trying to take Greenland. I wouldn't be surprised by that. But I just don't know that. I didn't look that up. I mean, I could look it up quickly, but I'm not sure that it changes things. Once again, let's assume that they are trying to take it. What type of world are we comfortable setting? What type of standard are we comfortable setting? So Nick says that What is a leader that doesn't take territory? Venezuela, Cuba, Panama, the Panama Canal, Greenland. He says that if you're a citizen of the United States of America, why would you be opposed to your country getting bigger, richer, more resources, and planting our flag in more places? You shouldn't. That's what Nick is saying. He's saying that this is good for us. And what's good for us is the capital G good. A lot to unpack there, but it's all saying the same thing. Is what's good for America good? Is that what America First is? And is America First America only? I guess that's the question that we have to ask ourselves as well. We're putting ourselves in a difficult situation. And maybe that's just what big boy leadership is, a bunch of difficult situations that we are presented with certain options that we don't like any of them. And then what do? We do the same thing that we do when we're voting. We choose the lesser of the evils and what benefits us the most, I guess. So we've just been in a tough situation. I have no problem being clear on where I stand on it. I think that just based on where I want to see the world, like that, and I think it comes down to this a lot. When you would close your eyes and envision what type of world that you want to see, I guess that will largely dictate whether or not you're okay with what strategies you're okay with going about, even doing some of the things that Nick has suggested in order to create an America that is still in power. What are you okay with? What are you okay with? So, yeah, we already talked about this. Who said anything about letting them vote? Just take over, just take control of their country. Nick said, why would we be in a hostage situation with China over minerals? Just take someone else's. Is that the logic that we want to live by? It's almost like that saying, oh, you live by the gun, you're going to have to die by that gun. You pull out a gun on somebody, you got to understand that they may pull out a gun that's bigger than yours on you. Just like you escalated the situation, they may escalate it. Are we okay with that? Are we okay with that? And Nick reminded us of, a lot of these different instances that people are trying to use to get us involved in war with Iran, whether it's Van Jones and him doing his Zionist thing of talking about Iran and saying we need to help out those people there, but then he'll have different stances when it comes to Venezuela and a lot of these other countries. I think Nick reminded us once again when he talked about the women in Afghanistan saying like, yo, this has nothing to do with y'all voting. We just want the minerals. Like, and I appreciate that honesty and directness. Let's not act like we're going into Venezuela to be some sort of peace, democratic, to reset the moral virtue of the country and to help the people there. That's not what it's about. It's about colonialism, which is exploitation. It's about imperialism, which is taking control of your resources, taking control of your country for the benefit of ours. Are we okay with that? I think that's going to be the mood of this conversation that I'm having with y'all. What are we okay with? If you're looking at this video, write in the comments, what are you okay with? Are you okay with creating this world that a lot of these actions that Nick is discussing will lead us to? I don't even want to get into whether the good or bad yet. Let's actually just see if we can come to some understanding of what these actions are going to lead to. Then we can determine, okay, based on this action leading to this action leading to this action leading to this, now what do we see as the best thing? Now what are we okay with from a moral standpoint, principle standpoint, value standpoint? What type of world are we okay with creating by doing all of these things and accepting the actions that we're doing, and what type of world that will create? Is probably the better way to say that. But at least Nick is saying it. At least Nick is saying it. Once again, we want to act like we're the morally superior country. But in all actuality, how I see it, we've just had the privilege to stand on that because we've been number one and the most powerful force in the world. But when that's threatened, we see what happens with a lot of stuff that we're seeing in this world. Everybody has principles and morals until it comes to their personal interest of what may benefit their personal pockets, what may, I need to protect myself. So therefore me protecting myself is okay to violate these principles of other people, or these principles that I stand on, and violate other people as long as that's protecting me and mine. It gets us back to that tribalism mindset. So Nick says we have to be more radical. What do y'all think? So I'll leave y'all with that. Once again, leave a comment. Let me know. Asked a bunch of questions on this episode. Please leave your comments answering them. I want to make sure, once again, like I say on every show, I have blind spots. I have biases. I have certain principles and morals and values that I'd like to stand on. But perhaps I'm privileged enough to stand on those morals and values. Perhaps the colonialism in a lot of previous ways that our country has committed, the imperialism, all these different things, perhaps that's given me the privilege to now stand on this moral high ground. But look, man, I just see where the alternative is going, and my goal is just different. My goal is not solely for America to win. My goal is for humanity to come together and to wake up and to figure out a way that we can achieve this greater peace. Just live in harmony. It doesn't have to be all extravagant or anything. Like, just be decent human beings to each other. That's my goal. So that's the lens that I typically see the world through, which may create some blind spots that I'm sure y'all will let me know of. But as always, appreciate y'all. Appreciate the feedback, good or bad, doesn't matter. I appreciate y'all taking the time to watch the video, listen to what I'm saying, and to give some feedback. Let me know what you're thinking. So like, subscribe, turn your notifications on. Let's make sure we control that algorithm, right? Shout out to my big bro, Robert. He always makes sure that we stay focused on that. Let's control our own algorithm. And on that note, I'll see you on the next video.
It's the black guy in the corner, but they'd rather see a nigga on the corner. They say I'm stealing Nick's clips like I'm stealing Nick's chick, not knowing that I hit him first week for the lick. I said, Nick, I could post here while you post there. Let's run the ads up, then let's meet up over there. Let's figure out a split that's honorable and fair. Tell me where you trying to take it. Bro, I'll meet you there. 1600 Penn, Wash, D.C. Swear I saw the vision riding through the DMV. I envision prayers, but I could do VP. Hillbilly, Elegy, fuck, I look like JD. Shout out my cheat code, Dave and Karen raised me. And my big bro, a nuclear family. And they don't like that. Strong fathers in the crib, BLM for that. LBJ society created all that. Victimhood mentality, I can't embrace that. And everything they taught in school, assume it's all cap. Everything I said I'd be, I am that. Everything I said I'd be, I am that. Everything I said I'd be, I am that. Ain't no introduction, just some fun facts. In case you were wondering, I am that. I know you heard me hit it 3 times for Dr. Umar. Shout out to Umar, man. We ain't kicking nobody when they down. And shout out to everybody that continues to show love, support, appreciating the message that I'm giving y'all, along with the bro Nick's message. We gonna keep pushing, man. And shout out to the haters too, cause y'all in the comments heavy too. y'all the ones that gave me the inspiration to create this song. They kept saying like, who's the random black guy in the corner? I am.